The cow hit the Thanksgiving table at exactly 11:47 a.m. Later, when people told the story, and they would tell it for years, embellishing with each retelling it until it became legend. They will argue about the exact sequence of events. Did the money fly up first? Or did the table collapse? Did Sister Ngozi save the girl before or after the chaos? Did anyone actually see the envelope tear open? Or did they just see what spilled out? But everyone agreed on three things. First, that Lolo's voice, sharp as broken glass, loud enough to silence a thunderstorm, cut through the pandemonium with words that would be quoted on weddings, funerals, and church council meetings for next decade. That's my cow! Somebody should hold it! You people are ruining my Thanksgiving! Not someone might get hurt. Not is everyone okay. Not even catch that cow before it destroys the church. No, my Thanksgiving, my Thanksgiving. As if the day belonged to her. As if God himself had circled the date on his celestial calendar and written in gold ink, Lolo Konkwo's day of triumph. Second, they all remember the money. So much money. Green naira notes spinning through the air like confetti at a wedding, like leaves in a storm, like the dreams of every person who had ever scratched their widow's mite while watching the wealthy stride to the altar with their theatrics and their cows and their entitlement. And third, this was the detail that made the story immortal. They remember the envelope, cream-colored, expensive paper, the kind you buy when you want people to know that even your stationery costs more than their Sunday offering. It flew through the air in slow motion, or so everyone claimed, spinning like a propeller, and when it landed at Sister Eunice's feet, torn open from the impact, everyone close enough could see the handwriting inside. Elegant, confident, the script of a woman who had never been told no in her entire adult life. For Royal Deaconess position, 5 million naira. 5 million naira to buy a title that didn't exist in the house of God. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Every great fall begins with a climb. Every spectacular crash starts with someone who believes they are flying. And every story worth telling has a moment when pride, money, and a poorly tied knot come together to create something unforgettable. This is that story. It begins 3 weeks earlier, on an ordinary Tuesday with an ordinary church meeting and a woman who was anything but ordinary, though not in the way she believed. I am just saying, Lolo's voice sliced through the humid air of St. Jude's Catholic Church Hall like a machete through sugarcane. Some people in this church don't appreciate dedication when they see it. 40 women sat on plastic chairs that stuck to the backs of their thighs in the afternoon heat. They fanned themselves with service bulletins that proclaimed Women's Club Monthly Meeting in purple letters that were already running with sweat stains. Outside, Lagos traffic honked and growled. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed with the angry persistence of trapped insects. Everyone knew what was coming. They had been through this before, monthly, sometimes weekly. The script never changed, only the specific grievance. Sister Eunice, the women's club president, cleared her throat with the wary determination of a woman who had learned that leadership mostly meant managing other people's egos. Sister Lolo, we are discussing the Thanksgiving menu. Perhaps we could return to menu. Lolo laughed, and several women flinched at the sound. It wasn't a laugh that invited you to join in. It was a laugh that reminded you of your place, your poverty, your insignificance. Sister Eunice, while you are talking about rice and stew, I am talking about recognition. She stood, and the room seemed to shrink around her. At 47, Lolo Konkwo was a woman who wore her husband's wealth like armor. Today's Ankara outfit, custom-made, Italian lace trim, probably cost more than Sister Beatrice earned in 3 months, draped her frame with the calculated perfection of someone who understood that in Lagos, you wear what you wore. Her makeup was flawless, her jewelry caught the fluorescent light and threw it back in little accusations of inadequacy at everyone else's bare throats and unadorned ears. Her perfume, something French, something expensive, something that announced her presence 3 seconds before she entered the room and lingered 5 minutes after she left, wrapped around the church hall like an invasive species. My husband, she continued, her voice rising to that pitch that meant she was warming up, getting into it, preparing to wound. Chief Okonkwo gives more to this church than half this congregation combined. No one disputed this. It was true. Chief Okonkwo was a wealthy man, something in imports or exports or both. No one was quite sure and no one dared ask. What mattered was that he gave generously. The new toilet block, Chief Okonkwo. The roof on Pastor's house, Chief Okonkwo. The sound system that made Pastor Emeka's voice boom like the voice of God himself, Chief Okonkwo. And because Chief Okonkwo gave, Lolo never let anyone forget it. We built the toilet block, she continued, and we hung in the air like a bad smell because everyone knew we meant my husband's money while I supervised and complained. We roofed the pastor's house. We bought the sound system. We know, Sister Lolo. The interruption came from Sister Beatrice, a tired-looking woman in a faded dress who taught primary school and had 3 children, and a husband who drove a taxi when he could find work. You remind us every meeting. The room went silent. You didn't interrupt Lolo. Not unless you were tired of peace. Not unless you were ready for her to reach into her mental file cabinet where she kept everyone's secrets, failures and embarrassments and pull out exactly the one that will hurt you most. Lolo turned slowly and her smile was a beautiful, terrible thing. Sister Beatrice, she said, her voice suddenly sweet as poisoned honey. How is your daughter? The one who was supposed to be in university, but is actually selling clothes in Balogun market. Sister Beatrice's face crumpled like paper in a fist. I thought so, Lolo said softly, and sat down. In the chair beside her, Adanne, her shadow, her echo, her faithful amplifier, leaned close and whispered something that made Lolo smile and nod. They were always like this. The two of them, Lolo speaking, Adanne encouraging, Lolo spending, Adanne benefiting, Lolo shining, Adanne collecting whatever light spilled over. Sister Eunice tried to salvage the meeting. Sister, please, we have a lot to cover. But the damage was done. Sister Beatrice was crying quietly into her hands. Several women were staring at their laps. Others were whispering. The meeting had become what most meetings with Lolo became. A demonstration of power, a reminder of hierarchy, a small crucifixion. After 10 more painful minutes, Sister Eunice gave up and declared the meeting adjourned. Lolo and Adanne swept out together, leaving devastation and whispers in their wake. Outside, under the mango tree, where the words couldn't be heard through the windows, Adanne's voice dropped to a conspiratorial purr. Sister Lolo, I've been thinking. About what? Lola adjusted her head tie in the side mirror of a parked car, checking her reflection with the focused attention of someone who believed mirrors were meant to confirm, not reveal. About how these church positions can be negotiated. Lola stopped adjusting and looked at her friend sharply. What do you mean? Adanne glanced around theatrically, ensuring they were alone, though everyone who might have overheard was still inside the hall, probably discussing what has just happened, probably using words like unbearable and someone needs to talk to her husband. And how does Chief Okonkwo stand it? I mean, Adanne said carefully, you have the money, you have the influence, you feed half the church leadership with all your information. She let the word hang there, waited with implication. Why are you begging for what you can simply acquire? Lolo's eyes lit up with something dangerous and hungry. Go on. These deaconess positions, Adanne continued, warming to her team like a preacher who had found his text. What makes those women qualified? Sister this, sister that, what do they bring to the table? You're already doing more than all of them combined. You just need the title to match the reality. But I don't want to be just any deaconess, Lolo said slowly, her mind already racing ahead, already building castles in the air. Those women in there, she jerked her head towards the hall. They already look down on me. They whispered that I am just chief's wife, that I bought my position into the women's club leadership, that I... Then don't be just any deaconess. Adane interrupted, and her smile was the smile of a fisherman who feels the first tug on the line. I heard about something in a big church in Lagos. They have royal deaconesses. It's higher than all the regular positions. Can you imagine? Royal Deaconess Lolo Okonkwo. She said it slowly, reverently, like a title from a storybook, like something precious, like something deserved. Royal Deaconess, Lolo repeated, testing the words, testing them, trying them on like an expensive dress. It's perfect for you, Adane pressed. And think, when you walk into that women's club meeting with that title, when they have to address you as Royal Deaconess, when they have to acknowledge that you are not just some member but someone special, someone royal, well, she let the sentence trail off, knowing the imagination would finish what words couldn't. Lolo was quiet for a long moment, staring at nothing, seeing everything. The future she wanted, the recognition she craved, the moment when everyone who had ever whispered about her would have to bow. Does our church have that position? She asked finally. Adane's smile widened. If they don't, they can create it for the right donation. The word hung between them like a promise, like a key, like a door opening onto possibility. You know what, Adane, you are right. I deserve this. After everything I do for the church, after all the secrets I keep for pastor and the presiding elder. Adane's antenna went up. Secrets? Sister? Lolo lowered her voice, glancing around. You think pastor's son Chinedu is really studying in that seminary abroad? That boy is running a bar in Lagos. A bar? I saw him myself when I went for my niece's wedding. He was serving drinks in a sleeveless shirt with tattoos everywhere. Adane's eyes widened appropriately. No. Yes. And pastor knows I know. I told him I'll keep quiet because we are all Christians. We all make mistakes. Lolo smiled a cat-like smile. And the presiding elder? That new Lexus is driving. Building fund money. I saw the withdrawal slip myself when I was in his office. He forgot I was standing there. Sister Lolo, Adane breathed. You are sitting on gold. They can't refuse you anything. Exactly. Lolo's confidence surged. This Thanksgiving, I am going to make my demand clear. Royal Deaconess or nothing. Let's see if they want their secrets in the streets. Lolo turned to her friend, and in that moment, if someone had been watching from the church window, they might have seen it. The exact second when an idea became a plan, when ambition became intention, when pride began its inevitable march towards catastrophe. But no one was watching. They were all inside, trying to comfort Sister Beatrice, discussing whether someone should finally say something to Chief Okonkwo about his wife's behavior, wondering how much longer this could go on. The answer, though none of them knew it yet, was exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks until Thanksgiving. 3 weeks until the cows. 3 weeks until everyone discovered that sometimes God answers prayers you never prayed, and sometimes the answer is a catastrophe so perfect, so complete, so absolutely devastating that it becomes its own kind of grace. But first, there will be plans to make, money to count, secrets to leverage, and a title to buy. After all, how much could a position in God's house possibly cost? Lolo was about to find out. As they walked towards the car park, Adane admired the phone in Lolo's hand. Ah, Sister Lolo, that's iPhone 15 Pro Max, right? Very fine phone. Yes, now, Chief bought it for me last year. Last year? Adanne's voice carried just the right note of concern. But sister, iPhone 16 Pro Max don't come out though. A woman of your status carrying last year's model? What will people say? They will think Chief is having financial problems. Lolo stopped walking, horror crossing her face. You're right. I didn't even think of that. These people are always looking for ways to gossip. Just tell Chief you need to upgrade. You know, for your image, especially now that you're about to become Royal Deaconess. You need to look the part. You're so right, Adanne. I don't know what I'll do without you. You always have my best interest at heart. That's what friends are for, sister. Adanne's smile was warm, but her eyes were already calculating the resale value of a barely used iPhone 15 Pro Max. That evening, Chief Okonkwo sat in his study trying to read the newspaper when his wife burst in like a hurricane with a designer label. Chief, we need to talk. Chief lowered his newspaper with the weary resignation of a man who had been married for 23 years. Lolo, I am tired. Can this wait until... No, it cannot wait, Chief. Do you know what those women did to me today at the meeting? They disrespected me. Me, after everything we've done for the church. Lolo. And I've decided something. This Thanksgiving, I want to be made a Royal Deaconess. Chief blinked. A what? Royal Deaconess. It's a position, a high position, higher than all those regular deaconesses who think they are better than me. Lord, I've never heard of such a position in our church. Then they will create it. Chief, I am serious. I am not going to that Thanksgiving unless I am being honored as Royal Deaconess. You, me, the children, we will all stay home. Let's see how their Thanksgiving goes without our 2 cows and our donation. Chief set down his newspaper completely. Lolo, you can't be serious. You want to boycott Thanksgiving over a title? It's not just a title. Her voice rose dangerously. It's respect, recognition. I've been telling Pastor and the elder everything going on in that church. I know where all the bodies are buried. If they think I'm going to keep quiet and keep helping them while they give positions to women who barely afford to pay tithe, they have another thing coming. Lolo, I am not finished, and Chief, I need a new phone. This iPhone 15 is too old. People will think you're going broke. Chief rubbed his temples. The phone is barely a year old. Exactly. A whole year. The new one is out. I need to upgrade. Fine. Take money from the account and buy whatever phone you want. Just let me have peace. And the Royal Deaconess position? Chief looked at his wife, seeing the determination in her eyes, the set of her jaws that meant she would make his life unbearable until she got her way. He thought about the Thanksgiving coming up, about how much he had already committed to donation, about the business deals he was negotiating with other church members. I'll talk to the pastor and the presiding elder. Lolo's face transformed into a brilliant smile. She rushed over and kissed his forehead. Thank you, Chief. You see why I married you? You understand me. You know my worth. After she left, Chief sat in the silence of his study and wondered, not for the first time, how his life had come to this. How he had married Lolo when she was a simple, sweet girl from the village. Money had changed her, or perhaps it had simply revealed what was already there, dormant, waiting for the right conditions to bloom like some exotic, dangerous flower. He picked up his phone and dialed the pastor. Pastor Emeka and presiding elder Boniface sat in the pastor's cramped office, a room that smelled of old books and desperation. The phone call from Chief Okonkwo had ended 10 minutes ago, but neither man had moved. Finally, Elder Boniface spoke. Royal Deaconess? She wants to be a Royal Deaconess? There's no such thing in our church structure, Pastor Emeka said numbly. There's no such thing in any church structure. The woman made it up. Then we will have to make it real. Pastor Emeka's voice was flat. Elder Boniface stood up, pacing the small office. This is madness, Pastor. We can't just invent positions to satisfy our ego. Can't we? Pastor Emeka looked up, his eyes tired. Can we afford not to? Chief Okonkwo gives more to this church than our next 10 biggest donors combined. His Thanksgiving donation alone will cover our church debt for the year. But Pastor, And more importantly, Pastor Emeka's voice dropped to a whisper. She knows about Chinedu. The room fell silent. Elder Boniface sat back down. She knows? His voice was barely audible. She saw him in Lagos at the bar he's running. She told me 6 months ago that she would keep quiet because we are all Christians. We all make mistakes. Pastor Emeka laughed bitterly. I thought she was being kind. I didn't realize she was collecting ammunition. Elder Boniface's face had gone grey. Pastor, she also knows about the building fund. The Lexus, I was careless. She was in my office and I left the statement on my desk. I saw her looking at it, but I hoped. She's been playing us for months, Pastor Emeka said. Every secret she told us about other church members, every piece of gossip she brought to us, it was all to make us dependent on her. And it worked. They sat in miserable silence. So we give her what she wants, Elder Boniface said finally. We give her what she wants, Pastor Emeka agreed. We will announce it at Thanksgiving. Maybe make it seem legitimate. Royal Deaconess. We will say is a new position for exceptional service and extraordinary generosity. The congregation will know what it really is. The congregation needs the church debt paid more than they need their pride intact. It was a devil's bargain, and both men knew it. But they also knew that men who have already compromised their principles once find it remarkably easy to do it again. Meanwhile, at Lolo's mansion in the exclusive GRA neighborhood, preparations were reaching a crescendo. Adanne, come and see. Lolo's voice echoed through the marble-floored living room. Adanne hurried in from the garden where she had been pretending to admire the roses while actually calculating how much she could borrow from Lolo this week. In the driveway, 2 enormous cows were being led by herders, their horns decorated with ribbons. Sister Lolo, these cows they are beautiful. Beautiful? They are magnificent. Cost chief 2 million naira each. Lolo's laugh was triumphant. Let me see any woman in that church match this Thanksgiving donation. Neighbors had begun gathering at the fence, craning their necks to see. Children pointed and shouted. Even the security guard abandoned his post to stare. This is just the beginning, Lolo continued. Chief is preparing a cash donation of 10 million naira. Can you imagine? 10 million plus my special envelope. Special envelope? Adanne's curiosity was genuinely piqued. Lolo pulled her friend closer, her voice dropping. 5 million naira for the building fund. But it's really for creating my Royal Deaconess position. Consider it an investment. Pastor and elder will use it to convince the church council that I deserve this honor. Adanne's eyes widened. This was even better than she had imagined. Sister Lolo, you are a genius. But you know what? You need to look the part. That uniform has to be spectacular. I've already thought of that. Come, let me show you. They went inside to Lolo's bedroom, where fabric was spread across the king-side bed. Gold lace, purple velvet, white silk, and enough sequins to light up a stadium. I am having a special uniform made, not like those regular deaconesses with their simple white dresses. No, mine will have gold embroidery, a royal purple sash, and look, she held up a piece of white fabric. I am having Royal Deaconess embroidered on the front in gold thread. Sister Lolo, it's perfect. You will look like a queen. That's exactly the point, Adanne. Let those women see what real status looks like. As they admired the fabric, Lolo's new iPhone 16 Pro Max buzzed on the bedside table. She's gotten it 3 days ago, and Adanne had already pocketed the iPhone 15, which was now safely hidden in her room, waiting for the right buyer. Sister Lolo, Adanne said carefully, I've been thinking, this is such a big moment for you. Have you considered making a bigger entrance? Maybe hiring a praise band just for you, or having some of us walk ahead of you, carrying banners? Lolo's eyes lit up. Adanne, why didn't I think of that? Yes, I want people to know something special is happening. We will coordinate. You will organize a group of women to sing as I enter. Nothing too elaborate, just 10 or 12 women in matching outfits. I'll handle everything, Adanne said, already calculating her commission from the women she will recruit, the outfits she had arranged, the various ways she could skim a little off the top of each expense. And Adanne, after all this is done, after I am Royal Deaconess, I won't forget you. You've been my true friend through all this. Sister Lolo, you don't have to say that. I am just happy to see you get what you deserve. What Adanne didn't add was that she was even happier to get what she deserved, a steady stream of gifts, loans that never needed to be repaired, and now a barely used iPhone 15 Pro Max that will fetch at least 300,000 naira from her phone dealer contact. Back at the church, word of Lolo's impending appointment was spreading like wildfire through dry grass. In the modest apartment she shared with her 3 children, Sister Ngozi heard about it from her daughter. Mama, they are saying that Sister Lolo is going to be made something called a Royal Deaconess at Thanksgiving. Sister Ngozi looked up from the beans she was picking, her worn hands moving with practiced efficiency. At 45, she looked older, weathered by widowhood and poverty. Her husband had died 8 years ago, leaving her with 3 children and debt. She had worked as a nurse until she had been forced to sell her credentials to pay school fees. A Royal Deaconess? Sister Ngozi's voice was gentle, questioning. Yes, Mama. The women are saying she bought the position, that she's paying millions of naira. Sister Ngozi returned to her beans, saying nothing. She had learned long ago that the church, like any human institution, was flawed. She came to worship God, not to seek positions or status. She served quietly, visiting the sick, cooking for the church events, teaching children Sunday school without expecting recognition. Her old Nokia 3310 buzzed on the table, a text from the church asking if she could help prepare food for Thanksgiving. She replied yes, as she always did. Mama, her daughter said softly, doesn't it bother you? You do so much for the church and nobody even notices. But Sister Lolo gives money and she's getting a special position. Sister Ngozi smiled, the kind of smile that comes from hard-won peace. My dear, we don't serve for positions. We serve because it's right. God sees what people don't notice. But even as she said it, even as she meant it, there was a tiny part of her, a part she was ashamed of, that wondered what it would be like to be recognized just once, to have someone acknowledge her service, to not always be invisible. She pushed the thought away and returned to picking beans. 3 days before Thanksgiving, the crisis meeting in Pastor Emeka's office had the atmosphere of men planning a crime. We would do it after the Thanksgiving offering, Elder Boniface said, when emotions are high and everyone's feeling generous, and we will frame it as a new initiative. Pastor Emeka added, Royal Deaconess, a position created to honor exceptional service and transformative generosity. The congregation won't be fooled. They don't have to be fooled. They just have to accept it. And they will, because they need the church debt cleared more than they need their moral high ground. A knock on the door made both men jump. Come in, Pastor Emeka called. Lolo entered, magnificent in a purple dress that probably cost more than both men earned in a month. Behind her, like a faithful shadow, came Adanne. Gentlemen, Lolo said, smiling, I just wanted to confirm that everything is arranged for Sunday. Sister Lolo, Pastor Emeka stood. Everything is prepared as discussed. Good, because Chief and I are bringing something special, very special. I am sure the church will be grateful. We are already grateful, Elder Boniface said, his voice hollow. Lolo's smile widened. She reached into her designer bag and pulled out an envelope. This is for the building fund, 5 million naira, to help with administrative costs. Her eyes met Pastor Emeka's, and the message was clear. This was the price of her silence and cooperation. Pastor Emeka took the envelope with shaky hands. Sister Lolo, you're too generous. Not too generous, Pastor. appropriately generous. For appropriate recognition, she turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Pastor, I hope Chinedu is well, still in seminary, I am sure. The threat hung in the air like smoke. After she left, Elder Boniface slumped in his chair. We've sold our souls. We sold them long time ago, Pastor Emeka replied, staring at the envelope in his hand. This is just the receipt. The Saturday before Thanksgiving, Lolo's house was a circus of activity. The tailor had delivered her uniform, and it was by any measure spectacular. White silk with gold embroidery, so intricate it looked like filigree. A royal purple sash that said Royal Deaconess in letters visible from across a football field. White shoes with gold heels, a matching head tie that added 6 inches to her height. Sister Lolo, you look like an angel, Adanne gushed, though privately she thought Lolo looked more like an over-decorated Christmas tree. Not an angel, Adanne, a royal deaconess. Lola admired herself in the full-length mirror. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, those women will have to respect me. They will have no choice, Adanne agreed, thinking about the new outfit she had bought with the money from selling the iPhone 15. Life was good. Life was very, very good. In the compound, the 2 cows munched grass peacefully, unaware that tomorrow they will be paraded before hundreds of people as symbols of wealth and generosity. In the safe, 10 million naira encrypted note waited to be displayed. In churches across town, people were preparing their own Thanksgiving offerings, small envelopes with their widow's mite, their honest sacrifices. And in her modest apartment, Sister Ngozi pressed her only good dress, faded but clean, and prayed a simple prayer. Lord, help me to serve you faithfully. Whatever comes, the stage was set. The players were ready. Thanksgiving Sunday was coming, and with it, a reckoning that no one could have anticipated. Sunday morning broke over the city with a kind of aggressive cheerfulness that seemed to mock the various anxieties brewing beneath it. By 7 a.m., St. Jude's Catholic Church was already buzzing with an energy that went beyond normal Sunday service. Thanksgiving was the church's biggest event of the year, the day when God's blessings were publicly acknowledged and, more importantly, publicly counted. The church building, which normally held 300 comfortably, was packed with over 500 people. They squeezed into pews, stood against the walls, crowded the aisles. Outside, vendors sold roasted corn and plantain. Children ran between packed cars. The air smelled of perfume, incense, and anticipation. At 8:30 a.m., a murmur rippled through the congregation. Heads turned towards the entrance. Lolo had arrived. She emerged from Chief's new Range Rover like a queen, descending from her throne. The white and gold uniform caught the morning sun and seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. The purple sash proclaimed her position to anyone with functioning eyesight. Her head tie, an architectural marvel of fabric engineering, added such height that she had to duck slightly to enter the church doorway. Behind her came Adanne, carrying Lolo's Bible, leather-bound, gilded, probably blessed by a pope somewhere. Behind Adanne came 10 women in matching purple outfits, singing a song that Adanne had hastily taught them yesterday. Worthy is the woman of God, worthy of honor, worthy of praise. The congregation didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or applaud. They did all three, creating a sound-like confusion-giving voice. Chief Okonkwo followed his wife, his face carefully neutral, wearing the expression of a man who had long ago accepted his fate. Their 3 children trailed behind, teenagers mortified by their mother's theatrics, but well-trained in public appearances. Lolo processed down the center aisles with the measured pace of someone who knew every eye was on her and was savoring every second. She had been practicing this walk for a week. Step, pause, smile. Step, pause, wave. Step, pause, acknowledge the little people. She took her seat in the front row. a pew that had been specially reserved with a purple cushion that Adanne had installed yesterday. Sister Lolo whispered Mrs. Chukwu sitting nearby, "You look impressive." "Thank you, sister," Lolo replied graciously. "This is just a preview. Wait until the announcement." In the back of the church, Sister Ngozi slipped in quietly, wearing her faded but clean dress. She carried a small envelope with her Thanksgiving offering, 5,000 naira, scrapped together from her food money. She found a space standing against the back wall and bowed her head in prayer. At 9 a.m. sharp, the service began. The choir sang, their voices soaring in harmonies that made even the skeptical feel something like hope. Pastor Emeka preached about gratitude, about giving thanks in all circumstances, about how God sees the heart rather than the gift. His voice cracked at the last part. Several people noticed. The sermon lasted 40 minutes, which was shorter than usual. Everyone knew why. The real drama came during the Thanksgiving offering. "And now," Pastor Emeka announced, mopping his forehead with a handkerchief, "we come to the time of the Thanksgiving. Let us remember that God loves a cheerful giver and that it's not the amount but the heart that matters." Lolo smiled. Her heart was perfectly fine. "Thank you very much." The Thanksgiving began with the traditional procession. Church members came forward in turns, placing their offering in the large basket at the altar. Envelopes of various sizes. Some people gave cash publicly, displaying their notes for all to see. The choir sang Thanksgiving songs. The atmosphere was festive, joyful. Then came the big donors. Chief Obi came forward with his family, donating 1 million naira. The church applauded. Elder Nwosu donated 500,000 and 2 bags of rice. More applause. Madam Adanne donated 300,000 and promised to pave the church parking lot. Enthusiastic applause. And then it was time. Pastor Emeka's voice was trained, and now we recognize the extraordinary generosity of Chief and Lolo Okonkwo. The doors at the back of the church opened. 2 headers led the decorated cows down the center aisles. The animals, confused by the noise and crowd, moved reluctantly. Their hoofs clicked on the tile floor. Ribbons fluttered from their horns. Someone had tied bells around their necks that jangled with every step. The congregation gasped, then laughed, then applauded. Children squealed with delight. Cameras flashed. Several people started filming on their phones. The cows were led to the front and secured to a post that had been prepared for their purpose. They stood there chewing cud, looking supremely unbothered by their role in this human drama. Chief Okonkwo came forward next, carrying a large leather bag. He opened it at the altar, revealing stacks of crisp naira notes. 10 million naira, he announced clearly, for the church's ministry and debt relief. The applause was thunderous. People stood. Some were crying. 10 million naira was more than the church had raised in the last year combined. But Lolo wasn't done. She stood, smoothed her magnificent uniform, and walked to the altar with the measured grace she had practiced. From her designer handbag, she pulled out an envelope, not the one with 5 million. That one she had already given to pastor privately. This was a different envelope, smaller, containing 1 million naira. For the building fund, she announced, her voice carrying to the back of the church, so that our church can continue to grow and flourish. More applause, though some of it sounded tired now. There was such a thing as too much generosity, too publicly displayed. Lolo returned to her seat, her smile brilliant. She checked her diamond-studded watch, 11:30 a.m. The Thanksgiving offering had taken over an hour. Soon, very soon, Pastor would make the announcement and her triumph would be complete. But Pastor Emeka seemed to be stalling. He thanked the donors again and again. He talked about the church's vision. He called for another hymn. He talked about upcoming programs. Lolo's smile began to tighten. She glanced at Adanne, who shrugged helplessly. Elder Boniface was called to the microphone to pray. He prayed for 10 minutes. Then he called someone else to pray. That person prayed for 8 minutes. It was now 12:15 p.m. The congregation was getting restless. Children were whining. People were checking their phones. The cows had fallen asleep standing up. Lolo's jaw was clenched so tight her teeth hurt. Finally, Pastor Emeka returned to the microphone. He cleared his throat twice, 3 times. Brothers and sisters, he began, his voice shaking slightly. We live in a changing times. The church must adapt to meet new challenges. Today, we are introducing a new position in our church leadership structure. A position created to honor exceptional service and transformative generosity. A position of royal... He stopped mid-sentence. A child has started crying somewhere in the congregation. Not the normal fusing of a bored toddler, but a sharp, frightening wail that cut through the church like a siren. My daughter! My daughter! A woman screamed, hair turned. In the middle section, a young girl, maybe 13 years old, had collapsed in her mother's arms. Her body was rigid, her eyes rolled back, foam at the corners of her mouth. She's having a seizure. Someone shouted. Chaos erupted instantly. People jumped up, crowding around. Others scrambled to get away. The mother was screaming. The father was trying to hold his daughter still. Someone yelled for water. Someone else yelled for an ambulance. Pastor Emeka abandoned the microphone and rushed toward the commotion. Elder Boniface followed. The careful orchestrated service dissolved into pandemonium. And in the front row, Lolo sat frozen. Her face a mask of fury. Her moment was being stolen by some girl having a medical episode. Adanne, she hissed. What is happening? I don't know, sister, but we should wait for this to be over so pastor can make the announcement. Adanne stared at her friend, shocked despite herself. A child was possibly dying and Lolo was worried about her title. In the chaos around the collapsed girl, most people were doing what panic people do, shouting suggestions, getting in the way and generally making things worse. The girl's father was on his phone trying to call an ambulance. Her mother was crying hysterically. Pastor Emeka was praying loudly. Several church members were shouting conflicting advice. Give her water. No, don't give her water. Lay her flat. No, sit her up. Someone get a doctor. From the back of the church, a quiet voice cut through the noise. Everyone, please step back. Give her space. People turned to see Sister Ngozi moving through the crowd with calm authority. Her faded dress seemed to fade further in the comparison to all the fancy Thanksgiving outfits, but her face held a kind of focused competence that made people instinctively obey. I said, step back, please. Her voice was firmer now. She needs air. She knelt beside the girl, checking her pulse, her breathing, tilting her head to ensure her airways was clear. Her hands moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times. It's a seizure, but she's breathing, Sister Ngozi announced. We need to keep her safe until it passes. Please, someone time this. If it goes longer than 5 minutes, we need emergency service immediately. I am a nurse, she added, seeing the question in people's eyes. Well, I know what I'm doing. For 3 minutes, that felt like 3 hours. Sister Ngozi monitored the girl, speaking calmly to the terrified parents, checking vital signs, protecting the girl's head with a cushion someone handed her. Her old Nokia was on the floor beside her, forgotten. Her dress was getting dirty from kneeling on the floor. She didn't notice or care. Gradually, the seizure subsided. The girl's body relaxed, her breathing steadied, her eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened. You're okay, Sister Ngozi said softly. You're okay. Your parents are right here. The girl's mother threw herself at Sister Ngozi, sobbing. Thank you. I thought she was going to die. She needs to see a doctor soon, Sister Ngozi said, helping the girl sit up slowly. This needs to be evaluated properly. But she's going to be fine now. The congregation, which had been holding its collective breath, exhaled in relief. Applause started, scattered at first, then building. Someone started singing a praise hymn. Others joined in, but the drama wasn't over. While everyone's attention was on the medical emergency, one of Lolo's prized cows, stressed by the noise, the long-standing and the general chaos, had been pulled at its restraints. The knot that the header had tied hadn't been as secure as it should have been, and as the congregation's attention shifted back to Thanksgiving, the cow finally pulled free. An 800-pound cow, confused and agitated, loose in a crowded church. Someone screamed. The cow, startled by the scream, bolted toward the altar. People scattered. Children shrieked. The second cow, still tied, bellowed in distress. The free cow crashed directly into the Thanksgiving table, which had been set up with all the donations. The table collapsed. The leather bag with the 10 million naira flew into the air, rupturing on impact. Money scattered everywhere like confetti at a wedding. Envelopes of various sizes tumbled across the floor, and one particular envelope, cream-colored, sealed, marked building fund donation, landed at the feet of Sister Eunice, the Women's Club president. Sister Eunice, more out of reflex than intention, picked it up. The envelope had turned slightly in the kiosk. She could see inside. She could see the money, lots of it, and she could see something else. A note in Lolo's distinctive writing. For Royal Deaconess position, 5 million naira. Sister Eunice's eyes went wide. Her hands started shaking. The cow, meanwhile, had become entangled in the purple sash that had been hanging from the podium. It bucked and twisted, the sash wrapping around its legs. It crashed into the baptismal font, which tipped over, spilling water across the marble floor. Headers were chasing it. Men were trying to corner it. The choir was shrieking. And through it all, Lolo's voice rose like a trumpet of judgment. "That's my cow! Someone control that cow! Do you know how much that animal cost? Where are the headers? This is unacceptable. My donation is being ruined. My money is on the floor. Someone better be collecting that money." Not once did she ask about a girl who had just had a seizure. Not once did she check if anyone was hurt. Her only concern was her cows, her money, her moment. Chief Okonkwo closed his eyes in shame. Adane, seeing the way the wind was blowing, had already edged toward the door. Lolo's iPhone 16 Pro Max still in her hand, ready to disappear into the crowd. But Sister Eunice wasn't moving. She stood in the center of the kiosk, holding the torn envelope, staring at the note inside, and then, in a moment of courage she would later attribute to divine intervention, she walked to the microphone that Pastor Emeka had abandoned. "Everybody stop!" Her voice was amplified through the church sound system, cut through the pandemonium. The cow was finally cornered by 3 strong men near the side door. People froze mid-motion. Even the children stopped crying. Sister Eunice held up the envelope, her hand still shaking, but her voice steady. "I think everyone needs to see this." She read aloud. "For Royal Deaconess position, 5 million naira. The church went silent, the kind of silence that feels like a physical presence. "Someone want to explain," Sister Eunice continued, her voice heard down, "why we were selling positions in God's house?" All eyes turned to Lolo, standing in her magnificent uniform, her face cycling through shock, rage and panic. "That's private," Lolo shrieked. "You have no right to read my private correspondence." "Private?" Sister Eunice's laugh was bitter. "Sister Lolo, you threw this money on the altar in front of God and everybody. There's nothing private about it." Lolo pointed a shaking finger at the woman. "You are just jealous. You've always been jealous of me. All of you have." "Jealous?" Another woman stood up. Sister Beatrice, the one Lolo had humiliated at the last meeting. "Sister Lolo, we are not jealous. We are tired. Tired of you buying your way into everything. Tired of you lording your money over us. Tired of you knowing everyone's business and using it against them." "How dare you?" "She dares because it's true." Another voice joined in. Then another. Then a dozen more. The dam had broken. People who had been silent for years, intimidated by Lolo's wealth and sharp tongues, suddenly find their voices. Pastor Emeka tried to regain control. He stumbled to the microphone, gently moving Sister Eunice aside. "Please, brothers and sisters, let's not..." "Not what, Pastor?" The voice came from the back of the church. Mr. Okafor, a retired civil servant, stood up. Let's not talk about how positions in this church are being sold. Let's not mention that our spiritual leaders are taking bribes. Pastor Emeka's voice went grey. And while we are being honest, another voice called out. It was young Chidi, who had gone to university with Pastor's son. Can someone explain why Pastor Chinedu isn't actually in seminary? Because I saw him 2 months ago in Lagos running a bar. A bar. Pastor. Pastor Emeka gripped the podium for support. That's my son's situation is complicated. Complicated, Mr. Okafor wasn't done. What's complicated about lying to the congregation? We've been praying for him, sending him money for his studies. Where did that money go? Elder Boniface tried to intervene. Brothers and sisters, we are all sinners. We all make mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, a woman's voice ran out. Elder Boniface, is it true that your new Lexus was bought with building fund money? Because my husband works at the bank and he saw the withdrawal. Elder Boniface's face went from grey to purple. Das, how dare you access confidential bank records? So it's true then? The question came from multiple mouths simultaneously. The church erupted. Years of suppressed frustration, hidden resentments, and unspoken truths came pouring out like water from a burst dam. People were standing, shouting, pointing fingers. Some were crying, some were laughing at the absurdity of it all. In the middle of the chaos, Lolo stood frozen in her Royal Deaconess uniform, watching her carefully constructed moment collapse into ruins. The uniform that was supposed to symbolize her triumph now felt like a costume, ridiculous and garish. She turned to look for Adanne, her faithful friend, her supporter, her confidant. Adanne was gone. The iPhone 16 Pro Max was gone too. Only later would Lolo discover that her friend had already listed it for sale online, along with a post that said, barely used, owner upgrading again, quick sell. Chief Okonkwo stood and took his wife's arm. We are leaving. But Chief, now, Lolo, we are leaving now. His voice had a quality Lolo had never heard before. Not anger exactly, something colder, something final. As they moved towards the exit, people parted to let them through. Not out of respect this time, but out of awkwardness. The cars were being led out through the side door. Their grand entrance and promised donation now tainted by scandal. At the door, Lolo turned back one last time, a desperate attempt to salvage something. You people will regret this. You will see. When you need money for the church roof, for programs, for everything, where will you go? You think you can run this church without us? Nobody answered. The silence was more devastating than any response could have ever been. They left. After the Okonkwo's dramatic exit, the church remained in chaos for several more minutes. People were still shouting, still processing, still unable to believe that the day had unraveled so spectacularly. Pastor Emeka stood at the podium, his face in his hands. Elder Boniface sat in the front pew, staring at nothing. The leadership of St. Jude's Catholic Church had been exposed, and there was no easy way back from this. Finally, Mr. Okafor, the retired civil servant who had started the avalanche of truth, stood up again. Pastor Emeka, Elder Boniface, I think you both need to step down from the microphone. Let someone else lead us through this. It wasn't a request. It was a statement of fact. Pastor Emeka looked up, and for the first time in years, the weight of pretense, of compromise, of maintaining appearances, it had been crushing him for so long that its sudden removal felt almost like freedom. You're right, he said quietly, Mr. Okafor. Would you take over? Mr. Okafor walked to the front of the church, and with him came a sense of stability. He was an elderly man, respected, known for his integrity during his years in civil service, a rarity in a corrupt system. Brothers and sisters, he said, his voice calm but firm, we've all witnessed something today, not just scandal, but revelation. And I include myself in this. We all played a part in creating a church where money could buy positions, where gossip was currency, where we valued the size of donations over the content of character. People began to settle. Children stopped fusing. Even the remaining cows seemed to calm down. "We have a choice now," Mr. Okafor continued. "We can let this destroy us, or we can let it transform us. We can scatter in shame, or we can rebuild on a foundation of truth." He paused, looking around the sanctuary. "Earlier today, while we were all focused on cows and cash and titles, one person amongst us shows us what true service looks like. One person, without seeking recognition or reward, without worrying about her clothes or her status, saved the child's life." All eyes turned to the back of the church, where Sister Ngozi still stood. Her faded dress now dirty from kneeling on the floor. She looked startled, uncomfortable with the sudden attention. "Sister Ngozi," Mr. Okafor said, "would you please come forward?" She hesitated, shaking her head slightly. "Please," he insisted gently. Slowly, reluctantly, Sister Ngozi made her way to the front. She walked past the scattered money, past the overturned baptismal font, past the chaos that her quiet competence had helped contain. "Sister Ngozi," Mr. Okafor said, "I don't know you well, but I know what I saw today. Would you tell us about yourself?" Sister Ngozi's voice was soft, almost apologetic. "There's nothing much to tell. I am a widow. I have 3 children. I used to be a nurse, but I had to sell my credentials 8 years ago to pay for my children's school fees after my husband died." A murmur of sympathy rippled through the congregation. "I come to church to worship and to serve," she continued. "I don't have much to give in terms of money, but I have time and skills, so I give those instead. I visit the sick, I help cook for events, I teach Sunday school, that's all." "That's all?" Mr. Okafor repeated. "Sister, that's everything. That's what this church is supposed to be about." He turned to address the congregation again. "Pastor Emeka and Elder Boniface have compromised themselves. They all need to face discipline from the church council. But we also need to acknowledge that we enabled this. We created a culture where the biggest donors had the loudest voices. We forgot that in God's economy, the widow's mite counts more than the rich man's surplus." Sister Beatrice stood up. "Mr. Okafor, our church constitution says we need deaconesses. We've been talking about filling those positions for years. And after what we saw today, I think we know who should fill in one of them." "I second that," another woman called out. Then another. Then a chorus of voices. Sister Ngozi looked panicked. "No, please, I don't need a position. I am happy just to serve." Sister Ngozi, Pastor Emeka spoke up, his voice hoarse. "Please forgive me. Forgive us. We've been so wrong. And if there's anyone in this church who should be called a deaconess, it's you. Not because you paid for it, not because you needed it, but because you've been living it all along." Tears were streaming down Sister Ngozi's face now. "I don't deserve... No, none of us deserves God's grace," Mr. Okafor said gently, "but He gives it anyway. Will you accept this call to serve officially what you've been doing unofficially all these years?" Sister Ngozi looked around the church at the faces watching her, some crying, some smiling, all of them tired of pretense and hungry for authenticity. "Yes," she whispered, "if you think I can be useful, then yes." The applause that followed was different from the applause that had greeted the Okonkwo's donations. It was softer, warmer, like rain after drought. Someone started singing Amazing Grace, and others joined in. The old hymn filled the church with a sweetness that all the money in the world couldn't buy. But the drama still had one more act. From the doorway, a figure emerged. Adanne, who tried to slip away in the confusion, now stood uncertainly at the entrance. In her hands was Lolo's iPhone 16 Pro Max. She walked slowly to the front, her face a mixture of shame and defiance. "I was going to sell this," she said, holding up the phone. "I've been using Sister Lolo for months. Years, actually. Taking her old phones, her old bags, her old jewelry, borrowing money I never intended to pay, encouraging her worst impulses because it benefited me." She set the phone on the altar. "I told her to buy the position. I invented the whole Royal Deaconess thing because I knew it would feed her ego, and her ego would fill my pocket. I am not sorry I got caught. I am sorry I did it." She turned to Sister Ngozi. And I am sorry that I was about to attach myself to you the same way I attached myself to Sister Lolo. You deserve better than a parasite like me. Sister Ngozi looked at Adanne for a long moment. Then she did something that made several people gasp. She walked over and hugged her. We all need redemption, Sister Ngozi said softly. Mine just looks different from yours. You want to really help? Come, teach children with me on Saturdays. No money in it, just service. Adanne, who has spent years calculating every relationship in terms of profit, found herself crying on the shoulder of a woman in a faded dress who smelled like disinfectant and cooking oil. I'll come, she managed to say. I promise I'll come. The Thanksgiving service that was supposed to end at 1 p.m. finally concluded at 4 p.m. There was still much to resolve. The question of the money scattered on the floor, which was painstakingly collected and counted. The fate of Pastor Emeka and Elder Boniface, who would face church discipline. The restructuring of church governance to prevent future corruption. But something had shifted. Something fundamental had changed in St. Jude's Catholic Church. As people filed out, they passed the two cows, now calmly grazing on the church lawn, utterly unconcerned with human drama. Someone joked that the cows should be sold and the money used to start a transparency fund. People laughed, real laughter, not the nervous kind. The girl who had had the seizure was sitting outside with her parents, waiting for the ambulance that had finally been called. Sister Ngozi sat with them, monitoring the girl's condition, answering questions, providing comfort. She didn't look like a deaconess. She looked like herself, tired, worn, ordinary. And perhaps that was exactly what a deaconess should look like.